I am. Yes, ma'am, and thank you. I'm so happy to be here. Yes, ma'am. Definitely been a part of the journey. Well, I tell you what, I'll just start with my story and I'll back up just a tad bit. I met my husband on a college campus in 1985. Actually, it's really funny. When I first met him, I didn't like him at all, but that's another story for another podcast. Eventually, obviously, I married the man. So somewhere we found a middle ground and fell in love. And I like to start at this point because it insinuates the story. My husband never asked me to marry him. When he proposed, he asked me if I would be the mother of his children. And that's significant because children meant everything to him. And because of the things I went through as a child, which is another podcast one day, children meant everything to me too. So our whole marriage was based on the idea of having this godly family, raising up children who could serve God. And I threw my everything into that. He was a Shell scholar, meaning that they paid his way all the way through school and they gave him summer internships in Houston. And we were both electrical engineering majors. So he was a year ahead of me. He graduated first. We moved to Houston and I transferred to U of H downtown, not downtown, I'm sorry, U of H um, in Houston. And then I conceived with my first child. And Beverly, I quit everything. I quit school. I quit everything because, again, excuse me, children were very, very important to me. They were my world. And so we had our firstborn, Jonathan James, because I wanted to honor my husband. He was a junior. I didn't want a third and a fourth and all of that. So we had James Page, and then we had Joseph James Page, and then we had Caleb James Page, and then we had Daniel James Page. And I think you can see the trend here. All these boys, and I'm like, okay, come on, we just can't keep going with this James stuff. So I said, I'm gonna try one more time for this girl, and I had twin boys. Excuse me, Amos. And we named him Benaiah Page and then Benjamin Josiah Page. So I have all these boys. I'm happily situated. His job afforded me the opportunity to be a homeschool mom. So I'm homeschooling my kids and other kids. We're working in the church and things couldn't be better. And I remember looking out the little bay window at my home and I said, Lord, everything is well for me. Of course, it's easy for me to go to church and praise you. But what if something happens? I wonder if I'm still capable of praising you. I remember asking God that question. Now, I don't suggest you ask God questions like that. I'm I'm not a fan of that anymore because you might just get your answer in a very real way. So, I think it was about 3 weeks later, Beverly, I woke to explosions, TVs popping, complete darkness. I don't know what this stuff is they do in Hollywood when they try to, I guess, show fire, but that's not real. You can't see anything. And the heat is like you're in an oven yourself. It was horrific. So what happened? I jumped. My husband grabbed me and threw me out the window. Just instinct. I had to hit him in the head because I guess the carbon monoxide had put us all out. He throws me out. Now I had the home children that homeschool, and my oldest three took my fourth son, Daniel, who was autistic, and they met him at the point. And I knew they knew what to do. But I had 22-month twin sons who couldn't save themselves. So my husband was able to get the four boys out by the grace of God because they met him at the point where he could just reach and pull them out. I know the fire safety rules. I know once out, you stay out. That's just a rule. However, I'm a mother and my twin boys couldn't follow a fire safety plan. So I felt responsible for saving them. So I jumped back in only to get trapped in my master bedroom by a bookshelf. It was a big oak bookshelf that had a lot of books on it, and it fell on me. And I'm literally burning alive. And I'm thinking, Lord, is this how it's going to end? Is this it? I really thought that was it. I mean, I'm literally, I could feel the skin falling off. It was a horrific experience. So my husband, I could hear his voice fading in. Where are you? Where are you? Where are you? Because you can't see anything now. Here's the hero. He's jumping in and out, in and out, in and out, trying to make sure everyone's safe. Pulls me out, throws me out again, and it's not the pretty throw; it's a real throw because he doesn't have time. He's trying to rescue everyone. And the neighbors drag me to the front. They can't really touch me because I'm burnt so badly, and they hold my head up with their head. One neighbor holding my head up, head to head. That's the only point she could touch me at. And I'm at this point, I'm probably in shock. And I'm like, I have six sons. Where are my sons? That's all I kept saying. And they say, well, we have two. I'm like, no, 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 I have six. And I kept screaming, somebody get Amos, somebody get Amos. My thought is I could feel him leaving me. Anyway, my husband, the fire is so intense that he can't just go through our room to the nursery to get the twin boys. He had to run around to the back street behind us, jump over the neighbor's backyard, over our backyard, just to get to the nursery. And he pulls out Benjamin. Now, at this point, Benjamin is severely burned. He's a baby, so he opens his mouth, he hollers, he has internal burns, facial burns, total upper body burned real badly. And then the house caves in. And at that point, of course, I don't know. The count never got above three or four. So I don't know how many made it. I didn't know if my husband is okay. I didn't know anything. Excuse me. I wind up, they said they took us two by two to the hospital, and I'm in the ambulance, and I hear this sound like, "Rah, rah," and it sounds like an animal that was being tortured. And then when it dawned on me, Beverly, that it was one of my children, I pass out. And I don't wake up again for another 6 weeks. That mother instinct is something else. Yeah, it was rough. So 6 weeks later, I awake from a coma, and they must have told my husband that I had woke up. Now, when I wake up, I'm still in really, really bad shape. I'm intubated still. Apparently, I had the breathing tube in all that time, which is not good. But I did because I still couldn't breathe on my own. My husband and my husband's cousin and my pastor at that time came in to relay the news that I had lost Amos. And I tell you what it felt like. I felt like a slave at a whipping pole. And I know this is a really bad analogy, but that's what it felt like. Their words were like these lashes, and I just could not escape. I couldn't express myself because I couldn't speak. It was rough. It was really, really bad. And the thing that happened to me in that moment, I would love to say, I said, "Oh Jesus," or whatever, but my first three words was, "What the hell, God?" I just did not understand that. I'm like, "We're family. Our whole life is committed to you. All we do is serve. We're good people. Imagine that. Boy, I had to learn about what a good person was. But, it's amazing how we feel about ourselves. And I just felt like I didn't deserve that, and that he did it. And it was a journey. It really, really was. But one I really, really value and treasure to this day. That's right. Exactly. Yeah. Well, I tell you, oh God, it was a marvelous journey. And I say that with a true heart. First of all, I believe personally that the greater the experience, the greater the service. Whatever experience God allows us to go through is because of what He's prepping us to do. I really believe that with all my heart. So the first thing I had to understand was that God doesn't go around setting fires. That's not what He does. As He told me, I'm there to help you when life happens, to rescue you from the fire and from the what the devil intended. I'm here to work that for good. So that's the first step. One experience I had after the tube came out, I still wasn't able to use my hands or move or do anything. And my husband would set up a CD of some Christian music. And the CD would play, and it'll play the whole CD, and then it was on repeat. So it'll start over again. Well, this one song came on, Beverly, and I was offended by the song because it kept saying, "You are my God, I am your servant." And I am basically it was saying that how I ought to see him. I'm like, well, I don't see you like that right now. So I was waiting for it to go over and go to the next song. It didn't. It repeated that song. So the second time it repeated it, I'm like, okay. But I was kind of listening to the words. And then it did it a third time, Beverly. And I'm like, wait a minute. And I really heard it. And basically, at the end, it was saying, "You're going to lift your eyes and see me in holiness, in righteousness. I am your God." And I learned something really huge at that point. And when I received that message, it went to the next song. But basically, God is not flipping and flopping according to what's happened to us down here on earth. He remains God. He remains holy. He remains who he is. Now he's touched with the feeling of our infirmities, but he's not flipping and flopping in his emotions like we are. And I had to learn that. And I think my biggest breakthrough was when, because I had this mind that, okay, I'm angry at God. That was short lived, very short lived. Not Well, what I had to learn was that God is not flipping and flopping like we are with when things happen. We believe him, we don't believe him. We think he's against us, we think he's for us. He's steady. He's the same God. He's sitting on the same throne. He has the same authority, and he has control of all things. He's not tossed and turned like we are. And the lesson really came through. Well, I had the audacity to be mad at God. Now that was short lived because I mean, how can you be mad at the only person who can help you through a serious situation like we were dealing with? So I got over that real quick and reached out toward him. And I tell you, at the end, what I learned was so powerful. This was like one of my most powerful moments. I remember going to a fellowship with a group of ladies. I could finally drive again. When I got out of the hospital, I still couldn't use my hands. I still couldn't bathe myself. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't even go to the bathroom by myself. So this was after all of that. I had recovered. All the surgeries was over, and I was able to go to a women's fellowship for the first time in a long time. But when I got there, a lot of the women had their children, and they were coming in the door with the smaller children, the ones that weren't in school. And if um, Amos had lived, I would have had Amos with me. So I was in the car bawling, and I was like, why, God? Why my child? Why you have to take my child? Why come nothing hadn't happened to any of their children? And I'm just going on and on. I mean, crocodile tears. And it was a neighbor, one of her neighbors was kind of looking a little concerned because he could tell I was really upset and crying, but he didn't know me, so he didn't know if he could approach me or not. And I remember God speaking to my spirit. I'll never ever forget it. And he said this is not about you. And it just gave me such a pause to my crying turned into hysterical laughter because I thought that was the funniest thing. And I'm thinking this man looking at me thought I was a little loony because first I was crying, then I was laughing, bending over, holding my stomach, laughing. And I'm like, Lord, if it has nothing to do with me, it sure involved a lot of me. Do you think you could kind of explain this? And he did. And he let me know that Christ doesn't revolve around our will. We revolve around his will. He's the Son, the SON. And he let me know that the best thing to do in situation when things get tough is to not ask him why, but ask him what now. Because even if we know the why, it's not going to change one thing. But if we know the what, we can recover and build and get our life back. And God, He said, we're too close to our situations to see a whole picture. God is far enough away to look at what happened and to decide, okay, I'm going to let that happen. I'm not going to let this happen. I'm going to let this happen because He knows how to work everything together for our good. All of it. The good, the bad, the ugly, and what Satan intended for evil, God means it for good. And I just think of all that has come out of me going through this experience, the souls that have been saved, the people that have been blessed. It's just amazing. No, no. It's amazing, right? Yeah, well, here's the right. Here's the thing with that. I think we do that because we know he has the power to block things. We feel he has the power to stop it. So, I mean, I sympathize with people who have wives. I really do. I've had a plenty of them, but I also know the power of not getting stuck in that because why doesn't matter for the person who has sold themselves out to Christ. It really doesn't. We have to trust Him in all things. Yeah, That's right. Well, I can tell you about that. I can tell you exactly how that happened. I was sitting there after I had cried my eyes out and everyone was gone. And I was like, what is the reason to live? I mean, I had lost hope. I'm like, everything is gone. Everything's altered. My body is totally altered. My husband is not going to love me. I mean, that downward spiral of depression. And I think when I hit the point that if he leaves me, then somebody's going to have my children. And that just, I mean, that was my silver lining there. I'm like, wait a minute. I've got to live. I have five surviving children and they need me. You know how we feel. They need me, like it wasn't anyone else, but they need me. And I'm going to live for those kids. And I began to fight until I won. And also, I started thinking about my husband. Beautiful relationship. I mean, still a beautiful relationship. But I'm like, they will snap him up in a minute. No, ma'am. You can't have him. I want my husband. I want my brown sugar. And I began to fight. But what that was, no. But what that was, what actually literally happened, that was an ember of hope. And I think that's what I feel my calling is, to spark that ember. It's just a little flicker of hope. Because personally, I believe hope is the heartbeat of survival. You can survive anything if you have hope, if you have something to look forward to, something to reach to, no matter how small it is. It's enough to drive you crazy. Exactly. Yes. Yeah. Well, my mind was reorganized because, again, as God plainly told me, it was not about me. Now, it didn't mean I didn't need to take care of myself or what I felt didn't matter. I don't want to come across as brass or, uh, quite frankly, stupid. That's not what I'm saying. But it's more to our lives than what we want. It ain't all about what we want as Christians. All of us want plenty of money, a pretty house, a big car, and God knows we want these things. But life has so much more to it than the earthly things. There's real battles out here. There are people really losing their souls. And we can be instruments through our circumstances, through our experiences, and especially when we're authentic and we're transparent about our experiences. Our vulnerability, I always say, is God's currency to save a life. When I was open, when I share openly, when I tell people how I really feel, okay, does that make me look good? Maybe not. I don't care. I'm telling the truth, but I can also say I felt this way, but I found a way to change. I found a way to renew my mind. I found a way to victory. So I'm going to tell the whole story and not just the parts that make me feel look good. That's right. That's right. That's exactly true. It's so, so true. And that's the thing that makes people seek our God when they see his strength in us. And everything I've done, everything I've accomplished, everything I've overcome, it's only by the grace of God and his power working through me. It's as simple as that. I do. I do. I have a nonprofit in memory of my son. So it's called the Amos House of Faith. I support children and families affected by burn trauma here in the Houston metropolitan area. I have a lot of different programs that I do. Of course, with COVID, some of the things have been shut down, but I'm still doing things. And quite honestly, I'm doing more one on one because we can't gather in groups. So people are calling me and I'm videoing and I'm telephoning and I'm like, wow, I'll be glad when my volunteers and everybody can get back to helping. But the need is great. And I do a lot of things. You can learn more about it at the amoshouse.org. Um, it's what I did in memory because Amos' death was going to mean something. He wasn't just going to die and that be the end. That wasn't going to happen. I had to do something in his honor and in his memory. Exactly. It's just something about it. It's how we're made. It's how we're function. How we function by our Creator. We're created to serve, even though we like to be served, but we're created to serve, and we do our best and feel our best when we're in that capacity. Well, We Are Stronger was about PTSD. We Are Stronger it was about PTSD. Yeah. Now, Breaking Strongholds is about suicide prevention. At least episode one is. So exciting stuff. We don't know yet, or at least I don't know yet as an actress. We're waiting to hear any day who's going to pick it up. We do have an agent that is pitching it to some major streaming services. So we'll see. Um, they could go to my website, justinapage.com. They can email me, justina@justinapage.com. And also, I'm on all the major social media platforms. So, oh, good. I'm excited. Sure. So, the first one is called In His Arms. I'm so super excited. That one is firstly for mothers who have lost their children, and secondly for people who have just experienced loss. I think the content is going to be applicable to anyone who have experienced a loss. Really happy about that. I want to take people through my journey from just despair to empowerment, and just walk through that process and just kind of be open and transparent about it. The second one is called Building Hope with Purple Thoughts. That's going to be a weekday, little 5 to 6 minute inspirational point, and the thoughts are taken from my journal, my Building Hope with Purple Thoughts 2021 journal. And basically, the Lord spoke to me one day, and said, I want you to share a thought, an authentic thought every morning with your Facebook followers about your life and what you've learned from me, whatever I wake up with on my mind. So I started doing that, and Beverly, it just blew up into this huge thing. People love the purple thoughts. People text me and share things, and recently, just was it this year or last year? No, this year. Someone texted me and said, this thought saved my life. I'm like, this is amazing. That's what I mean by we don't know what God is doing. We just simply should just follow what he's saying. So someone said, you need to put it in a journal. You need to make a journal where we can have our own set of purple thoughts. So I did. And this year I came out with my 2021 edition. So basically, I'm going to share the story behind the thought. And then we can continue the discussion on the Facebook group for the podcast. Super excited. Wow. Yes. No. Well, I really enjoyed it. I really, really did. And I like your podcast too, by the way. Really awesome. Exactly.